Hey, this is Tony Ross for TonyTeach.com, and I wanted to answer a question I saw posted in a forum recently. And someone was basically looking at an older tutorial about a couple of years back, and they're trying to figure out why the drawing pivots in a rig weren't working correctly anymore. Well, here's the secret to that. No longer are we using drawing pivots, and we've kind of advanced beyond those. And the only time you should use those is if a client is actually asking you. So what I want to show you is how I'm going to rig out this piece and not using drawing pivots, but actually using peg pivots instead. So what we have here, if I click on my transform tool, I have several layers here. And there's the foot, there's the lower leg, and there's the upper leg. Now, in addition to this, I've made sure that if I open these up under controls, animate using animation tools, I definitely have this turned off because we don't want keyframes on our artwork. Okay. In addition to this, it's something that's kind of almost hidden. If I zoom in here, you can see, of course, I've got these little circle joints happening, but I have a perfect little dot right in the center. And just to give you a little bit of heads up on how that's done, let me turn these other two off for a second. Basically, you would grab your ellipse tool. I'm going to hold down my shift key, click and drag this out. And what you would do from there is you can fill this in with a color, and I'll click the fill here. I'm going to hold down my Option and Shift keys. That's Alt Shift on PC, and pull this in. And that way I end up with a perfect little dot in the center. Now this is going to help when we set up where the pivot points would be. Okay. Now back to this other little section here. What I'm going to do is I'll select all three of my drawings in the node view here, and I'll do Command Shift P. That's Control Shift P on PC. So each of these have a peg. Now, this is important. Even before I start trying to figure out where the pivot is going to be, I know I'm going to have a little control for my foot, but eventually I'm going to want to have the lower leg also controlling the foot. And eventually I want to have the upper leg not only controlling the upper leg, but the lower leg and the foot. So here is a little trick. I'm going to select the lower leg and the upper leg peg, and I'm going to do Command Shift P once more. That's Control Shift P on PC. And these are going to give us our masters. Now, the reason I'm doing this initially is if we have the lower leg peg, this pivot, as well as the lower leg master peg, this pivot, they should be identical. So one of the easiest ways to do this is to set up the pivot points at the same time. Now, if that sounds a little strange to you, don't worry. I'm about to show you exactly what we're going to do. First up, I'll select the foot peg here and come up to my advanced animation tools. If you don't see these, go under Windows, come down to Toolbars, and make sure advanced animation is selected. All right. So come up here. I want to grab the rotate, and I'm going to move the pivot down here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see. Now, this is why I have that little dot. So I can come in here and line that up perfectly with the dot. All right, so zoom out. And now what I'll do is I'll select the lower leg peg master as well as the lower leg peg. Both of these at the same time. Then I can move my pivot. All right. And I'll do the same thing for the upper leg peg and the upper leg master. I can move all of these up top. I didn't put a dot up top. So that's not a big worry. But let's place it about right there. Now, I'm going to click off of everything in my node view here. And I like to double check my work. So if I click on either one of these pegs, they both have the same pivot point. And these two pegs have the same pivot point. So what we'll do from here, I'm going to click and pull out another cable from our lower leg master, connect that to the foot. Let's move this little guy up a little bit higher, and I'll click and pull a cable from here and connect it to the lower leg. Now, a little bit of node view etiquette. If you have two pegs that have the same pivot point, you should have them lined up directly. Does it work if it's over here? Yeah, it works. It's just sloppy. So we have this setting up here. And also, instead of me just calling this a peg, I'm going to change this name. This is going to be my lower leg master peg. So I'll just do MSTR. And technically, this isn't the upper leg master. It'll probably be the leg master. All right. And maybe this was my front leg. So let's do front leg master. All right. Now, once we're done with this, I can select my transform tool. And one thing you'll want to make sure you do, in your tool properties, you'll want to select peg selection mode. This way you're not accidentally clicking on your artwork. All right. So if I click on the foot, all right. Now, in what I want to show you here, so I press the letter B on my keyboard, it goes up to hierarchy. All right, so I can move the leg that way. Press the letter B again, it goes up to hierarchy again. To come down the hierarchy, you would do Shift B. All right, Shift B again, and there we have it. All right, so if we look at that in the node view, clicking on the foot, press the letter B, goes up to here, press B again, it goes up to here. Do Shift B, comes down here, Shift B comes down here. All right, foot. Let's see, I did that backwards. Foot, and if I press B, goes up to lower leg. Press B again, goes up to the full leg, and Shift B comes down the hierarchy. So I hope that helps and makes a little more sense, but this is probably one of the simplest ways of making sure that your pivot points line up. It's just by building out your peg and master peg at the same time and setting where those pivot points are. So if this was helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. Also, keep your ear out. We're going to be having a sign-up list for our newest training coming out, and that is creating simple production rigs in Toon Boom Harmony Premium. We'll be covering more things like this, as well as how do you go in and start adding in deformers to these legs. So this has been Tony Ross for TonyTeach.com. Make art, not excuses. So go make something. Have a good one.